Hello, and welcome to Sound Heal Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Brown, and thank you for joining me as we continue to explore the fields of sound healing, sound therapy, and generally the use of sound for health and wellness. Welcome to this 6th anniversary episode. I'm beyond excited to celebrate this incredible milestone with you all. What began as a passion project has blossomed into something meaningful, and it's because of your amazing support. Over the years, I've had the privilege of connecting with so many incredible people, and I'm truly grateful to each and every one of you who has listened, shared, and all of the guests that have been part of this journey. Thank you for your continued love and support. It means the world. So please keep sharing the podcast. Let's continue to grow together. And here's to many more years of connection, transformation, and sound. Today, our guest is Barry Goldstein. And in this episode, we explore Barry's amazing journey from a young musician and music enthusiast to a Grammy-winning producer and pioneer in using sound for health and wellness. He discusses his personal experiences that led him to discover the therapeutic potential of music. He explains his creative process and the concept of using music intentionally to influence emotions, enhance well-being, and support healing in various settings. Barry emphasizes and encourages us, the listeners, to incorporate sound into daily life and to become the DJ of our lives by using music as a tool for self-healing and personal growth. A wonderful, inspiring episode with Barry Goldstein. This podcast is sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa, located in Sarasota, Florida, and online at theomshop.com. If you are looking to up-level your sound healing practice, you're looking for that special tool, they have a wide variety of vibrational tools, instruments, custom tools. So I highly encourage you to check out theomshop.com, or if you can get there in person in Sarasota, they have trainings and workshops and a luxury spa as well. So thank you so much to the Om Shop for their support and sponsorship of this podcast. Please enjoy this episode with Barry Goldstein. All right, great. Well, welcome in, Barry. Thanks for being here. So great to have you. And this is the 6th anniversary episode of this podcast. So thanks for coming in for this.
Wow, congratulations. That's awesome. I'm honored to be here with you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to talk about the work that you're doing. Why don't we start a little bit with your background, though, your progression into music and any highlights you want to share of maybe early life, early Barry working with music. How did you get started?
Well, I was in a household that definitely I was surrounded by music. Although my parents weren't like formal musicians in terms of what they were doing, there was always a piano in the house. My sister played piano. And so I was surrounded by music and the groundwork for to kind of walk into that. My mother played by ear. My father was always singing. And so that brought an interest for me at a fairly young age, and started playing guitar when I was probably like 11 or 12 years old, and just was fascinated by writing and composing. So as soon as I learned three chords, I was writing songs. So for me, it was always a vehicle for expression and really, tapping into a way to communicate beyond words. And that's where it really started for me.
And so were you initially, you knew that was going to be your career and you were going to be a singer-songwriter initially, or what was the progression?
Yeah, I mean, I think so growing up like in a Jewish household, it was always like music is a nice hobby, but what are you going to do for a living? So I didn't know that I knew that I was going to be doing it professionally until I would say later on that, when I got into high school and started playing a little bit more and started doing some jamming and being in bands and also going to concerts. I think my first realization that I wanted to do this like as a full-time thing was going to a Beach Boys concert in Central Park, a free concert in the summer, 100,000 people in there, and just the unity of people singing along songs that they knew and feeling something that, wow, this is really cool how this is bringing everyone together. And I said, I'd like to do this. And so I think that was really the first realization that how music could really impact people on a larger scale. And yeah, I think that looking back at that now, I'm trying to think like what year that was. I would say that was probably like 1975 or something like that. So really interesting that it was like 50 years ago, that I had that realization of creating impact in the world through music. And I'm really kind of really circling back to how do we bring the healing aspects of this back into mainstream. Imagine having that impact, in sound healing concerts and, kind of meshing all I've done throughout the many years into moving this back culturally where it could be expressed and we could pass this on to younger generations.
Yeah, so you really did get into music production and composing and working with so many people. Do you want to mention the Les Paul connection? It wasn't that you just worked with Les Paul, but didn't you have one of your early guitars was a Les Paul?
Yeah, so when I started getting into wanting to play electric guitar, and it's actually that guitar that's right behind me, that cherry sunburst Les Paul behind me. My dad bought me that guitar when I think it was like when I was 14 or 15 years old. And it was a guitar we couldn't afford. We went to buy a Fender Stratocaster, and he saw my eyes light up when the salesperson brought it out and opened the guitar case and this hot pink, velvet 1970s lining of it. And all my favorite guitar players played this guitar, Jimmy Page and Carlos Santana. And my father took me aside and said, I'm going to buy you this guitar, but you have to promise me that you're going to stick with music. And of course, as a teenager, I made that promise and didn't realize that it wasn't just a promise; it was more of a rite of passage at that point. Because what I was promising in that moment really echoed and rippled out into my life as I began to become a music producer, and professionally doing it professionally. That I would look at that guitar and say, wow, I can sell this guitar and it'll be like 3 months worth, 3 months rent, coming up and having challenges initially. And I always would look at that guitar and see the name Les Paul on it. And it would really remind me of that promise that I made that my father invested in me in a very high quality guitar. And that name Les Paul stood for quality. And in 2004, right in that area, 2003, 2004, I was brought into a project for producing Les Paul. And that track that I co-produced ended up winning Best Rock Instrumental in 2005 with Les Paul. And I got to play with Les on stage. I got to tell him this whole story of how my dad bought me the guitar. And it was really, for me, just a reminder, that how intentions can be so powerful and how vibrations and resonance come together. And sometimes it's not always in the time frame that we think it's going to happen. It was nearly 30 years after my dad bought me that guitar that it ended up manifesting into the physical. And of course, that Grammy has, created a lot of openings for me in terms of moving to what I'm doing more in the healing world as well, because it's a symbolic of, again, of high quality and expertise in terms of what we do. So that promise went a long, long way and still continues to ripple out in many ways.
Yeah, what a full circle. experience. I mean, that's just amazing, I'm sure, to look back at and hold that energy of that agreement with your dad, that guitar still right there, and then the Grammy Award and all that. So, I don't think there was just from the way that you're talking about your experience with music and even concerts, maybe there wasn't a clear transition. Maybe you've always held this power of music and the healing effects and how it affects us. But what was there a transition? Was there something that kind of sparked, I can use this more as medicine. I can use this in more therapeutic way. What was the beginning of that for you?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of seeds planted, like as I went through high school and college, and even growing up in the Bronx, which was like a melting pot of different cultures and diverse friends with diverse musical tastes. I watched how music could affect them emotionally as well as myself. When we were hanging out in the park, and each guy would have a chance to play a half an hour mixtape of their favorite music. And even friends of mine whose parents were alcoholics. I had other friends whose brothers and sisters were like drug lords, and gang members in the Bronx. And when they played their half-hour music, I watched them transition into what was going on emotionally in their lives and watch their space open up as like they claimed their music. It became healing to them. So music was such a strong carrier of information that I think that's where the seeds were planted. And this was way before playlists. This was in on cassette tapes. So that's not really a new concept, of shifting music through playlists, but it was very powerful even back then, regardless of what the technology was. And I think I always kind of held that in the back of my mind. But there was a clear transition point for me, and that's when I became a producer full time and went from doing, and having the intention of it, from literally working with major label records and a variety of top tier artists, and that also increased workload and what I had to do in my work week. So a lot of times we have a vision of becoming something in our career, and when it manifests, we're so happy, but then it's not everything that we thought it would be. And I'm sure like a lot of your listeners or yourself might have that same feel, wow, I got to where I wanted and it wasn't what I thought. And that's what was going on. It was like, 50 or 60 hours to create a 4-minute song, or sometimes even more than that, and editing it and going over the same parts over and over again. And just the workload of having to do that every week, I started to lose my joy of music. And that kid who was sitting on the edge of his bed playing that guitar and excited by writing, he was kind of put on pause in terms of the adult me who had to turn out music every week. So I knew I wanted to create a change, and it was literally like, how do I go from literally from composing music to decomposing with music? And that was really the switch that went off in my head, is like, I need to get back to my heart, and I need to tap back into my love of music, because this is not what I thought it was going to be. And I remember at the time doing like some basic research on the internet and tapping in music and the heart. And what I found was that we had the ability to tap into our hearts, because music that's composed at 60 beats per minute targets our heart at a relaxed state. So it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. What would happen if I set my metronome for 60 beats per minute? Would that put me into a state where I'd be more relaxed and feel more connected? And what if I didn't know what I was playing? What if I wasn't predicting that it was going to take me, 50 hours to create a music piece? What if I just let myself free fall for an hour and just see what comes through, not knowing anything? And, taking everything I knew and throwing it out the window and connecting to something unknown. And that was really the key for me. And I started doing that, and I found myself moving to these very meditative states while I was decomposing and de-stressing from creating music. So, and I didn't think anyone would listen to it, to be honest with you. I didn't think that people would listen to music without a chorus and, out repetitive parts, because that's what I was so used to doing. And I started using them myself to move to more relaxed states, to sleep at night, just kind of listening to it myself as my own medicine and releasing anxiety. And I found that it was really working and I was showing a lot of benefits. So I started kind of testing it on friends and started getting testimonials and endorsements of like how they were using them with, parents who had dementia to help them sleep at night. I have one friend, I'm going to take it to the dentist office with me. I have a root canal, and, letting me know that she virtually had no pain and was recouping, very fast. And it's just amazing what our body can do when it's given the right information. And as that started to ripple out, it got more into hospitals and people using them before operations. I had doctors using them in operating rooms. I had people using them to deliver children into the world. And I named the series Ambiology because it just was a name that came to me. It didn't exist at the time. I've done like a lot of that, just like creating like words that don't exist and kind of redefining things. And I defined ambiology as ambi was ambience, the place of beauty or serenity, and then how that affects our biology. And ambiology went turned into a 6 CD series, that time CDs, that I later gave to a lot of people when I started playing conferences, including Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden and Neil Donald Walsh. And this became like a segue, what started as my own healing, and working with these amazing collaborations with, New York Times bestselling authors and just people who had these big messages that they wanted to share in the world and to help shift the world. So that's really, the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like, working with something to figure out how it works for you and really feeling the difference. It's like, oh, I wonder if other people will experience this. And then, of course, progressing to working with a lot of the thought leaders that you mentioned. So maybe let's unpack a little bit of that if you don't
Sure.
mind. I think maybe listeners know kind of conceptually, and most people know that music affects us in different ways, whether it's our emotions, memory, things like that. But as you make choices working for different purposes, for different
Hmm.
reasons, are you focusing on, and how do these things influence your work, like binaural beats and brainwave states, or harmony versus dissonance? Of course, you mentioned tempo with the heart rate. How much does that influence your work, and how do you make choices kind of based on your understandings of those things?
Yeah, so just backtrack a little bit and like you said, unpack a little bit of that. So what I didn't know then was what I was doing was moving into a state of heart and brain coherence, right? So as I moved into these states where I was synchronizing at 60 beats per minute, and also I was moving to a more blissful, joyful state, my emotions were elevated, and these elevated emotions that are combined with that specific tempo moving me to a more relaxed, what's called the parasympathetic state, where your body can rest and relax, rest and digest and recuperate and moving more into a healing state, is what we now define as heart coherence, right? Where smooth, orderly rhythms combined with an elevated emotion. And that state of coherence is sending messages out to our physical body as well. All the systems in our body are moving to entrain with the music. So entrainment is when an internal rhythm can synchronize with an external rhythm. The internal rhythm is the metronome of our heart, and the external rhythm is the metronome or the tempo in the music. But combined with that, is always, for me, there's always an intention. And my intention when I created that series was that it served the highest capacity of healing for each individual that would listen to it, starting with me as being the individual that was listening as an observer of it coming through, because I wasn't composing and writing things down. I was letting it move through me, and then I was putting layers of sound, afterwards, and it was creating these unique harmonies and what people described as like the music of the spheres or the cosmos in terms of that. So the thing to remember is that music is a carrier of information. So it's not just notes that, playing on a keyboard, and it's not just frequencies as well. And it's not just the thinking mind coming into it, but it's literally carrying the information of the person who is in the studio and the composer as well, where they're at emotionally in that time where the music is coming through them. And it creates a unique field of its own, that music that's combined with my intention, my energy, and my love that's going into it. And that ripples out to resonate with whoever's going to receive it. Some people are going to love it, some people are not going to. But the people who love it, when they hear it, they're moving into that state where their heart's moving into coherence and they're moving into an expansive heart state. And that magnifies every time someone listens to it. Believe it or not, that music creates its own field and the information grows. So the healing grows as each person listens to it and benefits from it as well. And that's why sometimes things take longer to reach a mass or a tipping point, because there's more people listening to it and they've created the space of others to step into that. And that's not just for music, that's for all creation. And it really starts as well from what I call divine collaborations. So it's knowing, and even in that first time that I was creating that music, where I was decomposing, that there was something else going on that was like unexplainable beyond my thinking mind of knowing what I was doing and my own imprint of my music knowledge, and my style that was coming through. There was something else that I didn't know, where I was like listening and going, oh, that's really cool. Like, wow, I've never done that before. Like, and listening even back, oh, like even now, like I'll listen to some of those pieces from ambiology and go, wow, I don't remember doing that, or I hear something new. And that was really where the switching point went on, of knowing I was creating with something beyond myself, whether you call it God, the unknown, the universe, Christ consciousness. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's just what you're connecting to. And not just having an awareness, if that's what I was connecting to, but beginning to invite it in to my space, to my environment, with everything that I created, and I for simplicity call it God. So when I ask God to come in and co-create, you never get no for an answer. It's always yes. And it's just really making sure as a composer that I am in a sacred place to invite that source in with me, to create whatever it is that I'm creating. So that's really in terms of deciding like what I'm going to use. I always, that's circling back to your question after unpacking it, is I'm always asking myself three questions. And that is, where am I now? Right? Where do I want to go? And what piece of music is going to take me there, or what style is going to take me there, or what technology is going to take me there, based on the project as well, and who I'm collaborating with, or am I creating it myself? Is it for a breathing meditation where, people want to induce a lot of energy, like Dr. Joe Dispenza's breathing pieces, is the music that I compose for that is very like tribal or very epic, because he wants to induce that the energy from the lower three centers and push that energy up during the breathing process to literally open up the pineal gland or activate the pineal gland. So that's going to be much different than composing a piece of music for heart coherence for a meditation, where we just want to move into a really soft and gentle and loving space. So, based on where I want to end up, and if there's a destination for the audience that I know in this collaboration, then that's what I'm asking myself. And then is once the piece comes through, I decide if I'm going to use my own proprietary technologies or binaural beats, or am I going to incorporate specific frequencies or tunings into the composition? What I love about it is that it's never the same. Every project is completely different and has a birthing process of its own. And I'm like the musical midwife that's here to, help bring it into the world. So that's the fun part of it, Natalie, is that I get to birth new things constantly. Like I was just in the studio for the last week, which was like completely unpredicted, and working on a new project for children that I'm going to be bringing in to the world, and teaching kids in a fun way about how these some of the things we're talking about can utilize, and how parents can teach children. So I love it. I just love the process of creation.
Right. And it's shifted your work that if you really are in that flow state, you're inspired, you're creative. Like you said, it's never going to be the same. You're just following what the need is. I'm wondering, you coined the term, is it acousticeuticals as well?
Mhm.
Was that a branch off of ambiology, or was that a little bit different approach that you created?
Well, yeah, that came after like I wrote my book. I was doing a lot more research, on music and how it could be utilized. And literally, within that book, towards the end of it, there were prescriptions of how music has been studied for specific benefits. And literally, the thought came into my head, and this was even before the term was being used in this was in 2014 when I was writing my book. It came out in 2016, that we are really beginning to see music emerge as medicine itself. And with that, you know, wow, what's different is that it's low cost and it's non-invasive, unlike pharmaceuticals or even nutraceuticals, which can, through different uses might have side effects on people. Music virtually has no side effects, and there's no harm that could be done for the most part listening to music. So that's when I came up with the term acousticeuticals, that tapping into the acoustics of music, we can literally begin to prescribe music to move to specific states and to enhance medical outcomes. So it doesn't have to always be used by itself, but it can be used with standard of care. It could be, and what I found out, it could be used to help people who are going through chemo. No matter, what people's choices are completely up to them. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's really what they feel is going to be, resonate with them for their own healing. But music can be there to support their healing process, and many of the precursors to chronic illnesses. Music has an unbelievable effect with like sleep, which is, without great sleep, it's a precursor for every chronic and terminal illness we know. Anxiety and mood, and stress, the long-term impact of stress, how that moves into illness as well. We can utilize music to get a head start and use it preventively. And these are like some of the programs that I've done, and so grateful to work with like pioneers in this field who understand the power of music to magnify mission, like Dr. Daniel Amen. And we've done 3 PBS specials together, everything from how music can be utilized to sharpen your mind. It's called Bright Minds, and memory rescue, and how you can use music to feel better faster, and how your brain is always listening, to music. So why not, target specific states and utilize music not just randomly, but in a program. And that's really, that's really one of the biggest keys, Natalie, is that um, taking this beyond what we know and incorporating it into practical use in our daily life. And, I think that's something that, if you want to open that up a little bit more, I can talk more about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about that aspect of working with people to magnify their mission and messaging. I love, because there's this music medicine aspect, but also the mission, and
Hmm.
how that's worked. Can you give us maybe some examples of some things you've done?
Yeah, so I started working with something that I call sonic signatures, with transformational leaders and people looking to create impact in the world. And was finding was that a lot of people are investing a lot of time and money in everything but their own unique sound, right? So they're investing a lot of money in websites and their branding look of their graphics, and then they're using stock music to, in all the wrong ways on all their videos. They're using music with a minor key and sad feeling when they're looking to uplift people, and because music's so readily available, I think there's a perception that, well, why not just use stock music? Because I spent all my money, developing my website and my graphics and my copywriting and everything else. But what most people don't realize is music is the most powerful language, is the most powerful copywriting you will ever do, or copying, like the words you're using, is marrying it with the right music and the right sound. And, major companies really get this. We've seen it for years, right? With AT&T or Microsoft, or listen to the sounds when you're booting up your Apple computer, or your email comes in. When AOL first came, they knew they needed a specific sound that was going to brand them, that people would remember, and they spent months just to find those right three notes, that were going to, be the chorus of their brand, out in the world. And we see it today, like in companies like Netflix, the big N that goes across the screen as soon as you see it. Oh, it's Netflix, right? But there's not a lot of people using this in their own sound branding. So I started working with people to create their own unique sounds and their sound signatures that are going to magnify their mission. And what I do is basically sit with people, and we go through a series of questions that, like, what is going to represent your music, learning more about their mission, to see what it would sound like, and really capturing that, because everything ripples out from that, from that one sound. And they use that across their different platforms, so that when people hear those specific notes or that specific signature, that it relates to them, they can feel that person's mission in 3 or 4 notes with under 10 seconds. And so it's something that, takes a lot of development to get to, but I think it's worth the impact, because, as you know, everything starts from a vibration. If you do everything else but you're ignoring the musical and sound side of it, there's going to be a disconnect, and there might be dissonance where you've created a lot of resonance in everything else. So that's what sonic signatures is about.
Right, that's really interesting. I think that, for many years, people, corporations have, like you said, been aware of the power of advertising, and of course, sound has a lot to do with that. Do you think more and more people, just in your years of developing all of this, are getting more accepting to the therapeutic effects of sound than perhaps they used to, and using it more as a daily practice? Is that getting more and more common?
Yeah, I mean, I that's kind of a two-part question, because the daily practice thing is, I think, something that needs to be enhanced more. I think that a lot of people are opening up. We're in a great point now. We're seeing a tipping point where sound is coming mainstream. We're seeing it in what we call digital therapeutics and apps. We're seeing them, right? We're seeing them in hardware as well, and sound beds. We're seeing them used for ketamine journeys and a lot of different things, with people journeying. And just because there's been such a large opening and what I call ancient and modern coming together, where we're seeing more studies on, the chanting of Om, creating limbic deactivation, which is, the part of the brain that's associated with inner peace when it's deactivated, our limbic system. The Kirtan Kriya, the Satanama chanting, a study was from the Alzheimer's organization showing it increases telomeres, which is part of how we can measure longevity. So it's coming into the longevity and biohacking as well. Like I just did a keynote talk on how we can use music to biohack our brain. So, and it's very, very big opening in corporate because they want to know how they can move into flow states, and using something not, I won't say as simple as music because music is not simple, but it's simple for them to play it. But to create the music that's going to be designed for specific things, is more complex. So we are seeing it a lot more. It's very exciting. But I think that because it's so readily available and because it's viewed as something that is free and there's an abundance of, right, that people play it, but not with a lot of awareness or intention around it all the time. So a lot of people have random, powerful experiences where, you hear a song come on, and you're like, oh my God, I love this song. And you feel an opening, you feel recharged, you feel relaxed, whatever the benefit is. But they continue to allow it to happen to them randomly, as opposed to realizing that they have the power to become what I call the DJ of your life. When you become the DJ of your own life, you're programming it, just like we watch DJs, shift the energy in humongous crowds now, 100,000 people. They know what song to play to move them into different states of energy. Or if you look at that, how that is used in, more typical situations in our life, like a DJ at a wedding, literally programming the energy of the wedding from, a welcoming music while people are socializing to amplifying it when people are dancing towards the end. The father dances with the bride and we all start crying, right? That DJ, he or she knows how to navigate energy. So that concept comes into what would happen if you did that. And this goes out to anyone who's listening in your day to magnify your mission, because we literally schedule everything in our lives, most of us. What would happen if we looked at our schedule in advance? Like you looked at your day tomorrow and said, oh, wow, 9 a.m. I have to go see a loved one in the hospital. Like what state do I want to be in for that? Maybe I should listen to a really beautiful piece of music so I could be more compassionate, with that person and be fully present. At lunch, I have to get back to work. I have to present for a meeting. I'm going to have to shift that energy from being in that beautiful, peaceful state to like having a lot of energy to create impact. Maybe if I play like one of my songs that make me happy, or like for me, I listen to the Jackson 5 or Earth, Wind and Fire or Sly and the Family Stone, like to raise my energy up. It's like old school, soul music. But what would that piece be for you to get yourself in that group going, and then like maybe at night, again, maybe you're having a romantic dinner with your partner and you want to shift into that mood, and what music would you play for that? And then winding down at the end of your night, what's your next day going to look like? And do you want to tap into a space of gratitude so that you clear your energy at night and you wake up fresh for the new morning? So imagine like literally scheduling that in so you knew the song for each of those states. And if something happened in your day where you felt, your energy was drained for some reason, things and challenges and situations come into our lives and can easily snowball into, one of those days. But if you program it beforehand, then you know at least that you're going to have 5 minutes just to shift your energy. Is it possible that it doesn't snowball into one of those days, that you shift back into the vibration of you come back into your heart, you recharge? Would it be possible that you would constantly stay connected and aware of your vision and mission and how you want things to ripple out from your life to help other people in the world? And so it's just a matter of awareness, because like anything else, even diets, right? You know what to eat. Most of us know what foods don't agree with us, right? So we have nutrition that we bring into our day to energize our physical body. What would happen if we bring in musical nourishment to, nourish our soul, our spirit, our emotions? And we don't listen to things that don't make us feel good. We check in with ourselves to see if a piece of music makes us feel expansive or contracted. And, that's what bringing this awareness in is, that you're your own sound healer. You're your own DJ. You have the ability to program your own life into harmony. And that's really what it's all about. We're constantly co-creating those things in the day that I mentioned. We're all collaborations. You're collaborating with somebody in some way. So collaboration is not just for artists and, musicians, but you're constantly collaborating, and you're constantly you're called to improvise. And those are the most powerful collaborations, is when you can improvise and be in that flow state, not just in, your music or your art, but literally you could be in flow state for new solutions and creating different outcomes in your life as well. So um, I have a lot of passion about bringing this into the practical.
Yeah, exactly. Really well put. I mean, like you said, people might have an awareness of, oh, that music made me feel like this or that. But yes, actually bringing sound as a nutrient, as a tool in your daily life. Sometimes we just forget to use the tools that we have. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
so the intentional use of music, creating a playlist for your day, for your week, for your intentions, your goals.
Yeah, and even
Beautifully
for different
said. Yeah.
emotions, like in
Right.
my book, I have some starting playlists for people that go over your basic, your basic emotions, joy, compassion, and literally, creating different playlists for them. And it's, for those people like, oh, I don't have the time to create playlists, or, start with 3 songs. And I mean, music is, as I said, so readily available through YouTube, through Spotify, that there are probably even pre-existing playlists that you could listen to as well. So there's really like no excuse not to be able to use music in this powerful way.
Yeah, that was really well said. Thank you. And I guess I'm curious now, as far as your work, what are you excited about right now, or what's coming forth? Maybe it's a project, maybe it's research that you're into. What are you excited about and what's inspiring you right now with your work?
Yeah, so it's interesting. What's exciting me, kind of like on opposite ends, but in full circle. So I'm excited about how we can pass this on to the younger generation and to start teaching them these things at a younger age. Like me coming home to my heart happened, when I was like 28 years old. Like no one taught me about heart coherence, about even placing my hands on my heart and listening to my heartbeat and my breath on a daily basis and connecting, or the ability for music to enhance my focus. Like all of these things, like imagine if I was taught these things in school at a young age. So I'm excited about creating programs and bodies of work that are going to teach children that at a much younger age. And I'll probably have some things out by the end of this year that are going to be very exciting in terms of passing on the baton, so to speak, passing on the torch to a younger generation and starting at younger ages. And, at the same time, everyone knows that like when kids are like reading children's books or going to see children's movies, that what are we really doing? We're re-educating parents on things that they've either didn't know or that they forgot. So this is just a great way to reach a large audience. And of course, who wants to be included in that as well, which is the other thing that I'm excited about, is grandparents, right? So, grandparents always will do anything for their grandkids, but also I think it's a very neglected part of demographics in the sound healing community. These are two things that we don't really talk that much about, about kids and our elderly. And so these are areas I'm excited about because, I have like a 91-year-old father-in-law, and had the blessing of having him live with me for about a year and a half. And when he would get stressed out, we would walk around the block and do the Satanama, like the Kirtan Kriya together. And we would take his blood pressure before and after, watch his blood pressure come down, watch him move into a more peaceful state. And imagine like giving this new tool, like this is a guy that was brought up in Oklahoma and was a landman and worked on farms. He wasn't really familiar with like chanting, but him being open enough to that and seeing that, and he goes to sleep with my music every night, to help him relax. Like imagine like how that can enhance the quality of life. Like for people who are hitting the latter years or their final chapter of life, to do that in a state where they can manage their energy more effectively and give themselves self-love and care. So these are the areas that I'm most excited about. I think the choir, so to speak, is getting it. So I don't want to preach to the choir or sing to the choir. I think that's all. There's so much of it in mainstream, in terms of, the demographic of, I would say, people between, you know, 25 and to 65. There's a lot of people, getting it. But I think for them, it's also incorporating it into ways that are more mainstream. And that's where we kind of started this. Like, I want to circle back into creating more hybrid music that is not just sound healing, but it's combining the two, singing bowls and house music, tuning forks and hip hop. It's like tear down the walls of genre and allow people to get the benefits of this through modern pop music. And pop music is really what is pop music? It's what's popular at the moment. And there are already artists that I've been in discussion with and collaborations who are already incorporated a lot of these things and are excited about bringing this into mainstream as well. So we're just in exciting times all the way around with this, Natalie. So you probably, you probably have a great understanding of this and are playing a part in it, having done this for 6 years and bringing awareness with your podcast, how it's grown in the last 6 years. So.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It is really an exciting time to be involved, and I think integration, whether it's hip hop and tuning forks, or integration of this modality in Western medicine, or whatever it is, or in mainstream, or in research, it's things are blossoming very quickly.
Mhm.
So yeah, absolutely, it's really an exciting time to participate and witness a lot of what's going on.
Mhm.
So, Barry, I guess just last question, is there anything you want the audience to be aware of? Maybe something they can check out, or just any last words you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, I am easily found. So the hub of finding me is at barrygoldsteinmusic.com, and you're gonna find my music mostly everywhere on Spotify and Apple and all the places where music are being sold. And I have a lot of playlists that are there and starting points, as well as a great YouTube channel for tapping in some of those things. I have courses as well that I teach that are geared more towards really grounding in these concepts into a practice and how to do that, what tools to use where, so that you can use music to magnify your mission. And, one thing I would just leave all of you with, and this is that you have the ability to be your own sound healer, and that you have the criteria at any moment to know what music is going to be right for you. So a lot of times we are taking prescriptions from other people's successes of things that resonate with them and applying their medicine for us. So think about that. Someone, what if someone got a prescription for indigestion, right? And they said, here, well, I already have a prescription for that. Why don't you just use mine, right? Would you feel comfortable using somebody else's medicine? For you, maybe you're allergic to that, or maybe, it's a different dosage than that would be right for you. It's important that you are aware that you have your own medicine. So one tool that I like to use is that when I'm listening to a piece of music is, does the music make me feel expansive or contracted? So expansive is like, I'm on the, top of a mountain, and that energy is coming in, and I feel my heart feels open, and I feel tingling in my body, and energy's moving. And that's a sign to me. And you might have different ways that you feel expansive through, through temperature or through smelling something. We all have different senses that give us signals of what's expansive for us. For me, contraction is when I kind of feel like when something is, feels like someone scratching their nails on a chalkboard for me, or it feels like I need to protect myself, like it doesn't feel like it feels good for me. I feel contracted. And sometimes there are little dissonances in music that help us clear energy. But again, it comes into dosage, like how you don't want to listen to that for 10 minutes straight, and like move your body into a contracted state. So ask yourself, when someone prescribes something for you, hold on a second, let me take a listen to this. I want to see if it makes me feel contracted, or does it make me feel expansive? And then you can say, well, this piece isn't really for me, or not in the moment that I'm in, or time I'm in my life, but maybe I'll try it again in another week or so. And if you were your own doctor, and this will be what I'm going to leave everyone with. If you were your own doctor, what one piece of music that you've heard would you prescribe to yourself in this moment? So maybe even like check in with yourself, like just go inward, close your eyes, place your hands on your heart, give yourself a big breath in through your heart, big breath out. Do that one or two more times. Big breath in through your heart, big breath out. And maybe something came to mind that you want to write down, like a piece of music or a genre of music might be a starting point for you. Or maybe you want to sit with this a little bit more on your own and, meditate a little bit more on this. But what one piece of music would you prescribe for yourself? And when you get the answer for that, okay, then after this interview is over, I invite you to go and listen to it and create an intention for yourself for utilizing that piece of music. Again, asking yourself where you are now, where you want to go, and then just allowing that piece of music to take you there. And know that you have that power to become the DJ of your own life and to use these acousticeuticals as your own medicine. And if that works for you, then play it forward to someone else. And that's the best gift that you can give me and them.
Yeah, thank you so much for your empowering and inspiring thoughts and work. And I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much, Barry, for sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Natalie, and thank you for this podcast and for all you're doing in this community. And again, congratulations. You know, most people can't stick with things for 6 days, so doing something for 6 years, if your audience doesn't know, I'm just giving you a shout out. You know, that even doing one of these episodes, the amount of work and time and focus and awareness, and you have to have the passion, obviously, to want to share this message in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's what it's all about. Exactly. Thanks so much, Barry. Appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sounds Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com, on Instagram, Natalie Brown Sounds Heal, on Facebook, Sounds Heal Studio, and listen to meditations, music, and podcasts on the YouTube channel, Sounds Heal Studio. Thanks again for listening and for your support. Be well and stay tuned.